final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
We're not trying to win any point show. We're not trying to win the stats wars. We just want to win the game. I'll take 3-2 right now. 3-2, shake the hand, come on back to the house and let y'all all talk about how bad the offense is. And we'll be 3-0.
Having like-minded people, and you look defensively at Mike Peterson and Lance Thompson and Tavares Robinson, Coleman Upshur, all guys I've worked with before. All guys I've been around before. All guys I know when the Bulls start flying, they're going to be loyal and they're going to work hard and they understand how we want to play defense in South Carolina.
That's a key word right there that Muschamp mentioned. Loyal. Loyalty is a big thing in a coaching staff. You know, I've seen a lot of coaching staffs come and go. And sometimes coaching staffs develop cancers within those staffs. Everybody is not pulling in the same direction for whatever reason. And you as a head coach, you have got to be able to either weed those people out or from the outset begin with a group of guys who believe in you and believe that you are a leader and the right man for this program. I think Dabo Swinney had to go through that some at Clemson. You know, the day he was hired, he fired some assistant coaches. Will Muschamp, very interesting point that he made there about his assistant coaches.
Yeah.
Loyalty, I think, is a big, big thing for a successful head coach. Guys that won't stab you in the back, guys that won't spread rumors about you, leak information about things that are going on inside. And it looks like he certainly has a staff that's got his back.
And it's more of a clip, more from a clip that we'll play later on the show. And it's interesting. He goes into kind of each guy he has on that staff and why he is there. And there's a very interesting story about one of his assistant coaches that you'll hear later on. And the one thing that I will say about both the coaches that we have the privilege of covering here at the FBS level in our state is that while there's kind of a CEO air around those guys are still very heavily involved in the game plan.
I think the key point of cultivating loyalty is if you open the door to assistant coaches. If an assistant coach can come to you and say, Coach, you're wrong on this one, listen to me, well, you better be right. And then they're right. They say, okay, great. Anytime you want to talk to me. And Muschamp seems that type of guy. Just give me a good argument why this won't work, and I'll accept what you're doing.
Of course, we're saying all these nice things while he's 2-0. Lose on Saturday.
Right.
The entire thing changes. Welcome into Sports Talk. It's a Thursday edition from downtown Columbia here on Main Street. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes all together. Very busy show as we get you ready for USC and Kentucky. The voice of the Wildcats, Tom Leach, will join us here in about 10 minutes. Clemson and Louisville. We'll hear from Howie Lindsay, who covers the Cards for CardinalSports.com. Plus, a little bit more from Swinney and Muschamp. We'll hear from Clemson cornerback Trayvon Mullen, who has a special interest in this game. Well, number one, of course, is his biggest special interest is wanting to win for the Tigers. But the number two special interest for him, his cousin, is none other than Lamar Jackson. So they know each other, of course, very, very well. And each is looking forward to going after the other. Plus, you didn't know this, but it's college baseball season. That's college baseball fall practice.
I loved the reaction from the last question that Mark Kingston, the new USC head coach, got. The fact that he was asked, have you ever seen this many media people for a baseball fall press conference? And he said, no. I don't know if I've seen that many people there for a baseball press conference during any part of the year.
Well, you go back to where he came from and the interest in baseball where he came from outside of his time at Miami. But even at Miami, I'm sure from a media standpoint, it wasn't covered. This is a whole different animal here in South Carolina when it comes to media coverage of the baseball programs.
Fall baseball beach. Fall baseball press conference beach. I'm in the Tampa Bay area. I think I'd take the beach. Plus, a lot of people are there.
I'd take the beach here.
True.
Weren't a lot of people just there to see what the new digs, the new media room?
Very nice.
And we saw it last year when they fired Chad. When Chad Holbrook resigned.
Wow.
That's where we had the resignation press conference. So
this is why Ray Taylor tells me I'm sorry that I work with you. This is why he does this, because you stir the pot.
Listen, Ray knows that I'm an honest fellow, and I ask honest questions. That's all. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. And
just call you Phil Pot. That's what we should call you.
He can handle it, and he can dish it back with the best of them. That's why we appreciate our relationship.
Understand it.
So we'll hear from Mark Kingston, and we'll hear from Monty Lee as they preview the start of fall practice.
That's going to be
the two baseball programs.
It's going to be a much different looking Clemson squad than we saw last year. A lot of guys departing, a lot more new faces.
But
9 guys drafted.
They still have beer.
They do.
If you got beer, that's all you need, man.
You got beer.
And the coach and the quarterback with us tonight at the bottom of this hour, Steve Tannehill and Chuck Reedy. So it is a full-blown show tonight. 800-956-7266 is the number if you want to join in to share your thoughts about the upcoming weekend, how you think things are going to play out. By the way, and we'll give you our official picks tomorrow for this weekend's games, even though I'll tell you, for me, I'm taking the Gamecocks, laying the 6.5.
Yeah.
And I'm taking Clemson.
Get out of here.
I'm taking Clemson, giving the 3.
Seriously.
Well, you weren't here last year.
Correct.
I made a bold prediction that nobody else in America has made, and that is Clemson would never lose another football game in the history of time.
Yeah, you told me about that.
And I've only been wrong once since I made that bold prediction. That's a pretty good average.
Right.
So I'm sticking with the Tigers until they let me down. So I'm going to take Clemson.
Even though they let you down once last year.
Pittsburgh let you down, and the NC State kicker
lifted
you up.
But last week in our Sports Talk Pick'em Challenge, it was the bad boy.
Yes.
Alan Smothers leading the way at 4-1. Everybody else was 3-2 across the board.
Wow.
I think Notre Dame
messed all of us
got
up.
A lot of us, yeah. Notre Dame losing to Georgia as a 4-point favorite.
I tell you what, Matt the newsman looked awful foolish picking Mizzou, didn't he? Just saying.
Anybody who picked Mizzou looked foolish.
And the Mizzou guy even didn't pick Mizzou. So what does that tell you?
That tells you you're not paying attention.
Exactly.
You're too busy doing the news.
Didn't somebody get the Oklahoma game right?
I think a couple of people did. I got it. I took Oklahoma.
Oh, did you?
Did you really?
I think I did.
Interesting.
I went 3-2. I was like everybody else went 3-2, and Alan Smothers, the bad boy, went 4-1.
You know what it was? It's the fact that Bob Stoops isn't there anymore. The big game Bob in there to lose it and blow it for. Yeah, he's not there to blow it for him.
The big kahuna, Bobby Harton down in Charleston, he is the overall leader after 2 weekends at 7-3. We got several 6-4s. I'm a 6-4. You're a 6-4. Kev Cohen's a 6-4, and the bad boy is 6-4. Matt, the newsman, is 5-5. Pro, you're in the basement at 4-6. Well, you're a slow starter. You're a typically slow starter. You're kind of pacing yourself. You're like Secretariat in the Belmont Stakes.
Pro's going to make it up in that week with all the cupcakes the week before the Clemson USC game. He's going to make it up in that week, I think.
Well, that's a tough week because, like, a lot of those games don't really have spreads because you're playing FCS opponents. So we have to
make our own up.
We have to delve in some out of the area games to look at. We'll have our complete picks for you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk. Couple of the major stories of the day, a story we broke on SportsTalkSC.com this afternoon. And as we hinted at last week, charges were dropped today against suspended USC basketball player Rakeem Felder by the municipal court in Columbia City Police, whoever was involved in that. He was arrested. He was arrested back in June for allegedly spitting on a woman, and that allegedly precipitated a brawl out in the street in 5 Points. And
nothing good ever happens at 5 Points after dark.
Yeah. So after they sorted everything out, they have dropped the charges. As far as I know, nothing has changed from the USC position or from Frank Martin's position with him because he is suspended from the team. And not only that, he is not enrolled in classes in the fall.
Yeah, I think that's probably the key point is that if they can get him back enrolled in classes in time for the winter semester, that can at least get the ball rolling and getting him back on the team.
They don't only have a fall in the. They have
fall
2
spring. Yeah, I'm saying
if he comes back at all, I see a red shirt. I think he doesn't play at all this year.
That might be a wise thing, but if he can help the team and everything is good with his situation, they might Let him play that second half of the season. Back in a moment. We are back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. From downtown Columbia, Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes with you. Very busy edition of Sports Talk on this Thursday night. Let's get rolling. We welcome in the outstanding play-by-play announcer for the Kentucky Wildcats, Tom Leach. Tom Hart. No, I'm sorry, you had it right the first time. Tom Leach. I'm looking at all kind of different
Hart
numbers.
is calling the game for SEC Network, though.
That is correct. Tom Leach joins us here on Sports Talk. Tom, how are you?
Tom Hart's a good-looking guy. I'll take the.
So are you. We'll give you your dub as well. How's everything with you? Uh-oh.
Do we still have Tom?
Hello.
Hey, Tom, are you there?
I guess we have to call Tom back.
Let's put him on hold.
I heard him say
That's
hello.
good because I totally blew the intro, so we can do it again. I left Tom, so we get Tom reconnected. Tom is at the Bengals and Texans game tonight, right?
Yes.
In Cincinnati.
Deshaun Watson getting the start.
Yeah. You know, I was looking at my notes here, and I saw Tom, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, I got it wrong. And I was looking under the wrong category. Yes, Tom Hart is doing the SEC Network. And Tom Leach is the play-by-play guy for Kentucky.
And the thing I think that'll be interesting to look at when we get Tom back is to kind of ask him how this offensive line will deal against the South Carolina revamped defensive line, which had a field day against those Missouri Tigers last week and made Missouri kind of look silly.
Yeah, we're getting Tom back with us now, so let's try it again. Mr. Leach, are you there, sir?
Yes, this has been a bad spell.
Yeah, it's okay. That's good.
Behind it.
Good to have you with us, and welcome to Sports Talk. And, boy, everybody around here who are Gamecock fans, they are really excited about this game on Saturday night against Kentucky. I mean, the Gamecocks are tired of losing to Kentucky. What's the Kentucky approach to this game after the first two games of the season for you guys?
Well, it's the first SEC game for Kentucky, and, Florida struggled in their first game. They won the East the last 2 years. So I think if Kentucky had a team like South Carolina, sees this as a game. If you want to say you could be a contender in the East, this is the game you need to win. And so whoever wins this game, especially South Carolina, they're 2-0 in the league and 2 East wins. Kentucky gets a division win and starts off conference play and then gets Florida next week. So, it's a big opportunity for two teams that aspire to a higher level, and only one of them is going to, be on that track at the end of the night.
So you're 2-0. You won down in Hattiesburg, and then you came home and you played Eastern Kentucky, and you really struggled with those guys as well, though they've given you tough games in the past. But the performance that you've seen from the Wildcats in 2 games, did their performance live up to your expectations?
Well, they're better on defense. Both teams, they've held under 20 points. Special teams have been solid. Their offense has, at the moment, had a fairly significant regression from last year. Probably not a big surprise because they lost 2 guys that hit a lot of home runs in Boone Williams, a running back, and Jeff Badette, a wide receiver. Then in the preseason, they lost Dorian Baker, who was their leading pass catcher 2 years ago and dogged by injuries last season. They lost the starting left tackle in training camp. So their offensive line's been a little slow out of the blocks. The center got hurt early in the first game. So between injuries and the early departures of Badette and Williams, they are missing some fairly noteworthy pieces from the team that got really good offensively in the second half of last season, especially running the football. So they're trying to, I think right now, find an identity, and they seem to do that in the second half of the East EKU game last week. But it's an FCS team, so was that because they were getting tired, or did Kentucky truly find its rhythm there? So we'll probably get an idea fairly early on Saturday night.
Tom, looking at the quarterback position, obviously Steven Johnson, the starter, but Drew Barker, a guy who got time last year, got time last week. Is there a controversy there, or is this just planned work to try and make sure that the future stays bright at that position?
No, Drew got snaps last week because he was coming off back surgery and hadn't been hit in a whole season. So they needed to find out he'd look good in practice, but different animal than live action. And so they needed to get him out and get him tested under fire, so to speak. Steven Johnson's the starter. He's been effectively the starter for the last 13 games. There were 2 games where he didn't start but came in very early. So effectively 13 games as a starter, and he's 9-4. So, that's a pretty strong record. And I don't think there's any doubt about who their starting quarterback is for the time being.
Talking with Tom Leach, voice of the Kentucky Wildcats, Kentucky and USC Saturday night in Columbia. And One thing that you guys have had great success with against the Gamecocks in this 3-game winning streak is running the football right at them, especially from the Wildcat. How much of that do you expect to see in this game Saturday night?
Don't know. I suspect they'll use some because it has been successful before. It hasn't been particularly successful in the first 2 games. As I said, they've had some issues with their offensive line. So I think I'm being in just about every game, because it was very good for them last year, they'll show it some early. If it works, you'll probably see more of it. And if it doesn't, then they may be more likely to get away from it quicker than they were in the first game or two. So I think it'll largely depend how much you see of it as how effective it is early.
The method of Kentucky the last few years is they'll run it, they'll run it, they'll run it, they'll run it some more, and then when you least suspect it and you fall asleep, they'll hit you with the big play. Is that still the formula there? And it's the formula that's going to be successful against the South Carolina team, trying to keep the ball away from them in Williams-Brice Stadium, which should be raucous on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think that's probably still the plan. I think the only way that changes is if Kentucky gets to a point where it is struggling to run the ball, because in the 13 games that Johnson played, effectively being the starter for those 13 games, I think he's only thrown more than 30 passes twice. And, you get games with more than 30 passes pretty frequently these days in college football. So, I think they would like to be able to run the football. And they kind of remind me of, if you're old enough to go back this far, the Oakland Raiders of the Darryl LaMonica days. They were our running team, and then they hit you with a bomb. And that was kind of Kentucky's MO last year.
Real quick, Tom, the special teams for South Carolina has anchored them in their first 2 games, more namely Deebo Samuel. How is Kentucky in special teams, and do they have a plan in place to kick it away from Deebo?
I don't know what their plans are as far as kicking. I can't imagine that they won't have some kind of a variety of plans. I don't think somebody like him, I don't think you want to do the same thing every time, unless you can just put it through the end zone every time. But up until last week, through last season and the first game, they've been very good covering kicks and punts for that matter. Although the punting itself wasn't good, the coverage team had been good. But last week they had a couple of breakdowns, gave up a couple of long returns that that may actually be a blessing in disguise for them, given that they didn't go for touchdowns, because it may have served as a little bit of a wake-up call if they needed it for how keenly they have to focus against Deebo Samuel, because obviously we've seen what he can do in the first 2 games. So a lot of importance on the kicks. Austin McGinnis did not have a particularly good day with his kickoffs last week. Too many of them were low and flat, and so I would suspect he's doing his best to get the ball high this week, because when they've done that, they've covered very well.
Tom, we thank you so much. We know you got the game coming up. You're going to be taking in the Texans and the Bengals. You get to see Deshaun Watson's first NFL start, so enjoy that. And we'll see you here in Columbia. Enjoy the trip down to South Carolina, and we thank you.
Thanks, guys. You're most welcome.
Take care.
Good
Tom
stuff.
Leach, the voice of the Kentucky Wildcats, with us here on Sports Talk on this Thursday night. We appreciate him being with us and sharing some insights on this Kentucky team coming into Columbia. Gamecocks, first time this season, a favorite, 6.5 points. We'll see if they can play up to those expectations.
It's a lot of points.
Be back in a moment. And we continue this Thursday edition of Sports Talk. Again, thanks to Tom Leach, the voice of the Kentucky Wildcats.
You get it right now,
finally?
You get it right now?
Yes, I've got it right. Fortunately, I don't think he was listening when I called him Tom Hart, so that's a good thing.
Now, he said that he appreciated it because Tom is such a good-looking man. Hart,
yes. Now let's
not
not
unlike yourself.
Let's get to the coach and the quarterback. We welcome in Chuck Noll and Steven Garcia. And I'm sorry. We welcome in the coach, Chuck Reedy, and the quarterback, Steve Tannehill, to Sports Talk. Guys, how are you?
Doing great. Chuck Noll's dead, you know.
Yeah,
it wasn't a very good correlation.
Maybe it wasn't a good example.
Still dead.
Yeah,
still dead.
Tannehill, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good to have you guys with us. All right, let's jump right into it. And hey, look, both teams are 2-0. Chuck, okay. Kelly Bryant, did he pass your test last week?
Well, he did. I thought he played very well. But here's my observation on him in 2 ball games. And Tony Elliott is a very bright young coach, and he knows what he's doing. What they've done with him, there's 3 things that Kelly Bryant does well. He throws the fade route exceptionally well, very well, and it's a very safe throw. In any kind of third and medium situation, they sprint him out and they throw the quick out to Renfro. A very, very safe throw, and he's very good at it. The only other thing that they've done with him basically is they'll run Renfro on a little quick slant when they're in a third and medium or third and long situation as well. So those are the 3 things that he's done in 2 games, and he's done them very well. Now, what he hasn't done, he hasn't stood in the pocket and thrown the ball down the field. He had the long throw against Ball State. You negate that. But I'm talking about the intermediate, the 15, 20, 25-yard throws down the middle of the field. They haven't asked him to do that. He hadn't done that. And it'd be interesting to see at some point, he's going to have to do that. People will take away, the 3 routes and the 3 throws that he's been so effective in the first 2 ball games. Sooner or later, he's going to have to make some other throws.
Steve, take me inside the mind of a young quarterback with Jake Bentley, because in my mind, in the first 2 games of this season, he's come out a little wound tight, especially against Missouri in that first half. He sailed that throw to Hayden Hurst on 3rd down, and there were a couple other throws that he missed that were makeable. He's acknowledged himself this week that he was a little wound too tight going into the Missouri game. How do you combat that, especially going into a home opener where the emotions are going to be very, very high in front of a sold-out crowd?
Well, it's tough. I mean, you almost take that first series, and the OC needs to get you into the flow of the game. So you throw some short passes or a screen just to settle yourself down. I remember Brad Scott telling me all the time, Steve, you just need to settle down. But high intensity guys are going to be high intensity, and Jake is one of those guys. And so you got to find ways there early in the game, and that's Coach Roper's job. He's got to be the one to set the tone by what he calls to get Jake into the flow. Jake's played really well. Jake's going to be, is unbelievable talent. But you got to be able to read your players and how they look in pregame warm-ups and how they look, going out there. And you've got to set them up for success early on.
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to ask you about the utilization of the tight end in college football. Still in my mind for a lot of teams, an underutilized position. With Hayden Hurst and his athleticism, he came to the university as a sort of overaged wide receiver, has turned himself into a tight end. Do you see South Carolina utilizing him more as they go forward during the season?
Oh, I think they will. And
I sure hope so.
Yeah, and what the – oh, go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
I didn't excuse me. I didn't mean to step on your toes, Coach, but I know Hayden. Hayden lives right beside me. Hayden's a great young man, very mature. Obviously, he played baseball in a Pirate organization, but we have a lot of good tight ends. and they can't get on the field because of Hayden and what Hayden's doing in the blocking game. He was MVP the first week on offense as far as the coaches awards, and he had 1 catch for -2 yards. So that tells you what he can do. But down in the red zone or third down, that's the time they need to be utilizing his talent. And I think they will as the season goes on. Last week, the little flip where he actually ran it in. I mean, those things can really, really help an offense. And he's that type of player. He is he's 250 pounds, but he's also very athletic. So as the season goes on, I expect him to be more involved, especially in those clutch situations.
It's the coach and the quarterback, Chuck Reedy and Steve Tannehill here on Sports Talk. So, Coach, sticking with the Gamecocks here for a moment, and I mean, we all seem to agree the Gamecocks are improved in every aspect of the game. Yet, offensively, they're only averaging through 2 games 302 yards per game. Now, I know there's a lot of things that go into that: short fields, special teams, touchdowns, and things of that nature. But still, they're not clicking yet as a high-level offense. Are they, or do you think that they are?
Well, first of all, that yardage is totally irrelevant. Here's what they've done. In order to win a football game, the first thing you have to do is not lose the game. In other words, you can't go out and lose it by turning the ball over, by having silly penalties, by having missed assignments, by having breakdowns in the kicking game. And that's the first thing you have to do. You don't lose it first, and then you got a chance to win it. And what they've done in the first 2 ball games, they hadn't beaten themselves. They have played solid. They hadn't beaten themselves, and then they played well enough to win the games. And if they continue to do that, they're going to be in every ball game, with the exception maybe 1 or 2 where they're just overmatched. They'll be in every football game, and they'll have a chance to win every game if they continue to play like that and not beat themselves with turnovers and penalties and things of that nature. And, if they can do that, the offense is going to get better and better and better. They've got talent, at really every skill position. They're very talented. I thought Tyson Williams, very impressive the other day. I mean, first time I'd seen him, I mean, he looks like the real deal. And, they're going to get better and better. The yards will come and all of that. But, what's important is they're not turning the ball over. They're not making silly mistakes and penalties and things of that nature.
Chuck, we talk a lot about an offense having to post a number. I'll talk about it on the defensive side for Clemson. What number does that Clemson defense have to post to give the offense a chance against Louisville? Because I don't think they can win a shootout. They're going to have to win a lower scoring game.
Well, first of all, Clemson defensively, I don't think there's anybody in the country better than they are. I don't think there's a defense coordinator in the country that can stack up against Venables. They're gonna, they'll keep it in the 20s, and is what I would think. But defensively, I mean, they're so good, I think. It's going to be hard for anybody to beat them. And this is, in my opinion, this will be the toughest test they have all year. On the road, against a very good football team, probably not as good a defensive football team as maybe they played last week, or maybe they'll play against Florida State. But, certainly from an offensive standpoint, be the biggest challenge they have all year.
Real quick, Steve, before we hit the break, what did you think of Stidham last week at Auburn?
I didn't see one play of the Clemson-Auburn game because of the Carolina game and just being down here.
You see, I had PIP. I was impressed with myself. I was able to watch both of them.
Steve, don't you own a bar where you can show both games?
If I was at home, I got 4 TVs in the same room. I could have done an easily. I tell you this, and I know this, and I've watched that. Clemson's defense is unbelievable. I'm not sold on their back half, but their front 4 is probably the best I've seen.
All right, guys, hang on. We'll come back for a couple more minutes with you here after the break. The coach and the quarterback here on Sports Talk. Okay, we're back at this Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a very busy Thursday nights, and Sports Talk brought to you by our good friends at South Carolina Electric Cooperative, sponsors of this year's annual Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. To find out more about what the co-ops are doing across the state, visit ecsc.org and save that date, December 9th, for the 2017 Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl, also known as the North-South game here in South Carolina. Couple of more minutes with the coach and the quarterback. So, Steve, the Gamecocks are debuting a DJ on Saturday night. Don't you wish back when you were playing they had a DJ in the stadium?
Yeah, that'd have been nice. That'd have been well, I mean, they got one at practice these days, and that's just how the times have changed. But it's we started doing that. Well, we didn't, but high school started doing that probably 5 years ago. So it just gives the guys an opportunity to get loose, you know, and pick up the pace of practice. I think it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Of course, they say one of the reasons, of course, is recruiting, and they have recruits at the game, and the recruits like to hear the hip hop and see all the coolness of everybody around them. Now, Chuck, in your day, you were one of America's great recruiters. All right, one of America's great recruiters at Clemson, of course. And, I mean, Clemson has gone deep into this as well. And, of course, winning, my opinion is all that is great if you're winning. If you're a 2-10 team or 2-11 team, it doesn't matter who you've got in their spinning record. It's not going to help you.
No, you're exactly right about that. You know, when you're 2-9 or 2-10 or whatever, like you said, you can do anything you want to do, and it's not going to excite anybody. But no, I mean, obviously, Clemson's, you know, they've been a little bit ahead of everybody in a lot of things that they have done recruiting-wise, you know, over the last 4 or 5 years. And of course, I think South Carolina, in some respects, is kind of catching up with them in some of these areas. But yeah, I mean, all of those things, you know, all of them are good. I mean, because like Steve said, the young guys, you know, they like all that stuff. I mean, we did the same thing at Goose Creek High School, you know, before the games. I mean, you know, you play all that music, you know, while they're warming up, and they like all that stuff.
Yeah. Chuck, I have a question for you. This is something that we talked about on the show yesterday involving Ohio State and an actual Clemson target involving a guy who basically said that he wants J.T. Barrett benched, and it's something obviously that has caught the eye of Urban Meyer at Ohio State. If a recruit told you what to do with your players and your personnel, how would that make you as a coach react?
Well, I mean, I certainly, not only recruits, but anybody that tried to tell me who to play, I would have to you know, inform them that I would play the guys who I thought could help us win football games. I mean, and that's the bottom line. You know, I think Urban Meyer's I think he's in a really tough place right now because, you know, he's got a problem. And, you know, he's you know, he I guess he thinks J.T. Barrett's his best chance to win. But, you know, the guy in every big game, you know, doesn't seem to perform very well. So they've got a problem, but, you know, I don't think that I didn't see where some recruit had told him that. I know that he's catching a lot of flack, but obviously you don't listen to anybody other than, you know, your staff, and you do what you think is right.
Yeah, yeah. It was on Twitter. You know, the recruits a couple of their big targets were tweeting out that they want to see the freshman quarterback in there. So if Herschel had said to you back in the day, hey, coach, you know, I got to get 50 carries a game or I'm not coming, I mean, what would you have told him?
Well, I'd have probably told him he could get 50. You do remember what Herschel said? He said the football's not very heavy.
This is true. This is true. All right. Before we let you go, Steve, how the Gamecocks going to do Saturday night?
I'm not impressed with Kentucky. You know, they've won 2 games, but I'm looking forward to. I'm going to actually go to a game. You know, I went to 1 game last year, and I'm going to be a fun fan to see the blackout. It's already sold out. I just don't think. And Kentucky's beat us 3 years in a row, so it's one of those games every year that obviously we don't do well in. But I just think that how we're playing, and I'm not sold on Kentucky in that stadium Saturday night. I think we win, and I think it'll be, it's an unbelievable atmosphere, and I think that helps. And I think our guys are playing with a lot of confidence. I don't think we're the greatest team in the world, but I think our guys are playing together, and that makes a big difference. I think we win on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. And Chuck, what about the Tigers in Louisville?
Well, I think when it's all said and done, Clemson will be good enough on defense that they'll contain Lamar Jackson better than anybody else has ever contained him, probably. And they'll find a way to score enough points to win. This will be the toughest game they've got all year, as I said earlier, and it's going to be a tough environment for them. But I just think they're too good on defense, and they'll find a way to put enough points on the board to win. Yeah.
So what you're saying is the greatest era of all time in Clemson football history will continue with a win on Saturday night.
I give them all the credit in the world. I mean, they've got a heck of a football team. They're very talented, and I think that they're on the way to having another great season.
Yeah. One thing they haven't done.
Hey, guys, it's called recruiting. Recruiting.
Yeah. Well, that's why Saturday night coming is so big for South Carolina. They got a bunch of their targets coming in, and this past Saturday was big for Clemson. But one thing, Chuck, they haven't gone unbeaten. Of course, they did go unbeaten through. Well, they haven't even gone unbeaten through 12 games like you guys did.
No.
So you still have that. You still got the champagne. You're like the Dolphins. You can still pop the champagne every year.
Chuck Reedy is Mercury Morris right now.
That's it.
We don't have anything, to be ashamed of for what we did now. I mean, we don't take a back seat to last year or any other year.
I don't know. I don't know that y'all could run the ball in this defense now. Seriously.
Well, I don't know, and we're not going to ever find out. So, I can say we could all day long, and nobody can dispute it.
He likes that.
All you got to do, coach, is put that crown back in the middle of the field.
You can't even be going downhill. Can't even see the other coach.
That's right.
Put that crown back on.
Did you play, Steve? When you played there, was the crown in the field?
Oh yeah, 92 it was. I couldn't even see the other sideline.
All right, guys.
There was a lot of high throws when you throw it from the middle of the field.
That deep out was way overthrown just about every time.
Hey, Steve, you better get your bar filled up for the weekend, man. You got a lot of people heading your way after the game and before the game on Saturday, so be prepared.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah.
Our students are living the dream right now, coming off of basketball and starting out 2-0. Man, it's a fun time to be a Carolina Gamecock for sure.
Well, you guys have a great weekend. We thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you,
guys.
Thank you. All right, Coach Reedy, and the quarterback, Steve Tannehill.
Yeah, I remember years ago, I think it was my nephew saying that Clemson team, he said, man, they're running so hard. Look like they're going downhill. I said, well, that's a reason for that. They are.
They are. That crown was something else. I mean, and that's the way Ford wanted it. That's how he running that option offense and getting on the corner and having those quarterbacks pitch it and those running backs start running downhill, truly running downhill. Pretty amazing. Pretty funny.
Deshaun Watson 22 today?
Yeah, he's going to start on his birthday.
Today is his birthday. Absolutely. Okay. Wow, what a great first hour. At least I think it was.
Yes.
Sure.
And another great hour is coming up. If you happen to lose us for whatever reason, don't forget you can stay with us on our stream on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, the TuneIn app, our Columbia affiliate, The Point Radio, a great place to lock into to stay with us. Top of the hour break. We'll be back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. On a Thursday night, we thank you for being with us. Where else would you rather be than with your best friends in the sports business? Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, and our good friend Mike Morgan joining us. Morgan on the move on this Thursday night as he is on the move to Athens, Georgia for the Sanford Bulldogs against the Georgia Bulldogs. Mike Morgan on the move, brought to you by Play It Again Sports in Columbia, where you can find golf equipment, fitness equipment, water sports, and a whole bunch more. Buy, sell, and trade exactly what you want. And by Founders Federal Credit Union. Check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. And Mike, Georgia Bulldogs, 2-0, man, coming off that win at Notre Dame. All of a sudden, people aren't doubting these Bulldogs quite as much with the freshman quarterback. And now they've got a chance to really go off and do some big things.
Yeah, I think anybody that was doubting Georgia before, right now, that's kind of the fashionable pick. I mean, they were picked to win the East at the beginning of the year. I think a lot of people thought Florida was right there, too. They got a lot of first-place votes. And maybe some people even held out hope that Tennessee would be legitimate. We'll see what they do against Florida. But when you look at it top to bottom, this is, for my money, the most talented team in the Eastern Division. Now, the most talented team doesn't always win. We've seen that a number of times in this division. But Jake Fromm is a guy, even with Easton out, that a lot of fans have kind of quietly been clamoring for because he has that X factor. He didn't put up great numbers, eye-popping numbers at Notre Dame, but he made some key plays. I think on that game-winning drive that set up the field goal, he was 5 of 6, made some plays, showed a lot of poise for an 18-year-old on the road in front of 80,000 fans in South Bend. They've got 2 really good backs. They've got 2 good receivers. And they've got a defense that returns 10 of 11 starters that I thought really made a case on Saturday that it's the best defense they've had in Athens since 2012. And you might recall that's the year they were within 5 yards beating Alabama in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. So it's a good team, and a game like this allows your quarterback, your young quarterback, to get some more reps, develop some more confidence. I would expect him to open up the offense a little bit and see what he can do, perhaps with a little less pressure than what you would see, obviously, from a Notre Dame defense. So all's going well right now. We'll see how they do on Saturday.
The game that's in the exclusive 3:30 national TV window in the SEC, Mike, Tennessee and Florida. We really don't know what to think about Florida because they didn't play last week, and when we last saw them, they didn't look good. Tennessee looks better than they looked in the opening week, but I still have my questions about them. What do you see in this one that will take place in Gainesville as scheduled?
Well, I think you're being kind, Will, when you say Florida didn't look good against Michigan, particularly on offense. They look woeful, and they really could have used a game last week. I don't care who it would have been against. They need to go back to my point on young quarterbacks getting reps. They need Felipe Franks to have something to build upon, and you just don't do that in practice. You have to do it in games. So the fact that they did not play a game, an extra week off, that might help you in November. You don't need that in early September. They needed a game, and now I'm very curious to see how that Florida offense is going to look, because it couldn't be much worse than what it was. Conversely, Tennessee is still a team I have my doubts with, both at quarterback and, quite frankly, on defense as well. So the loser of this, in my mind, is going to be in a world of hurt, and their head coach is going to be under a lot of heat. But the winner will certainly be in contention, at least, for the Eastern Division.
Mike Morgan with us. Morgan on the move. Let's talk about Clemson and South Carolina this weekend. Tigers heading to Louisville, a team they've beaten 3 years in a row, every time they've played them, but it's been tight. Only a 15-point difference between these three. Mm-hmm. We all know about Lamar Jackson. Even with his great game against Clemson last year, the Tigers managed a way to win. Do you see him getting 400-plus yards of total offense against this Clemson defense?
Ooh, tough question. I mean, Clemson's defense was pretty good last year, and he still had a hell of a game and actually outplayed Deshaun Watson if you really compare the two. I don't know. That's a really difficult question. I think second time around, Clemson will make some adjustments. I know he's got some good wide receivers. The receivers are big. You know, they got a lot of 6'2", 6'3" guys, but I think Clemson will be able to put heat on. I think their offensive line, Louisville's, will be outmatched. And I think you'll see a lot of Lamar Jackson running for his life, but that might provide some highlights. I don't think that's a winning formula. I think at some point Lamar has to be a little more settled to make key throws in key spots. And, you know, my only concern for Clemson would be it's on the road, it's at night, it'll be an incredible environment at Papa John's Stadium, home of the mediocre pizza. And if they,
you know, it's a shame you just said that because we just signed a contract with Papa John's to sponsor this segment. So I really am bothered by the fact that you said that.
Yes, I'm sorry. Maybe I just had a bad batch, but my last 12 pizzas from Papa John's have not been very good. But no, I mean, if Louisville, Louisville has that, that puncher's chance where they can just score in a hurry, no matter how good you are. And if all of a sudden, if you're Clemson and you're Kelly Bryant, and you look up and you're down 14 points, now you've got more pressure that you've ever had in your life. And that would be the only formula to me for Louisville to win this game. If they fall down early and Clemson can pin their ears back, I think it's lights out and Clemson wins it. I still think Clemson will probably win the game, but that's the only scenario that I could see Louisville pulling this off is if they get up early.
Gamecocks taking on Kentucky. Have the Gamecocks impressed you in the first 2 weeks? Looking at the score independent of the stats, you'd say that South Carolina was dominant at Missouri. I still think they need to show me something, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, we can say in the case of Missouri that the reason why I like Carolina to win that game, it's not a very good defense at Mizzou. I think Mizzou's got a whole lot of problems, and I think Mizzou is starting to kind of level back down to earth in terms of where their place is in the SEC universe, and where that place is probably the bottom third more often than not. Conversely, I've been a Bentley guy. I said at the beginning of the year I thought he'd be an all-SEC quarterback. He'd throw for 3,000 yards. I like the weapons he has around him. That to me was never the issue. The issue is going to be the Carolina defense, perhaps. Kentucky has some firepower, and they haven't really played that well early on, but I think you'll get their best shot. I think it's going to be a good game. I can't imagine Kentucky winning 4 in a row in this series. I think things tend to even out. I think it's time for the Gamecocks to put an end to that particular streak.
All right, what's the atmosphere around Athens for this game now? Bulldog fans pumped up now coming off this 2-0 start?
Yeah. I mean, life is good right now. If you're a Georgia Bulldog, you can kind of sense that. I just got here this afternoon. Everybody's excited, and they want to see more of Jake Fromm. And this will be the kind of game where he can air it out a little bit. Sanford will probably score some points now. Remember, they almost beat Mississippi State in Starkville last year. I think they put 41 on the board against the Bulldogs. So they're not afraid of SEC teams. Their coaching staff is a bunch of guys that worked under Hal Mumme and Mike Leach at Kentucky. But I think Georgia will have a chance to really expand the passing game a little bit, give Jake Fromm some more confidence. Look, he might be the guy the rest of the year. So for him, again, every rep is important, and I think you'll have a strong crowd behind him on a Saturday night.
I like to see him use Isaac Nauta more. I think he's underutilized at that tight end position.
Yeah, I mean, they've got so many weapons, and Blazevich is another tight end that gets a lot of reps, and you got 4 different running backs. I mean, it's just one after the other after the other. There are a lot of offenses in the country, Pro, where you're right. Nauta would be the featured guy. But it's almost as if he's kind of lost in the shuffle. I still think he's one of the best tight ends in this league, though. Maybe he'll have a coming out party on Saturday.
Okay, my man. Thank you, Mike. Have a good call on Saturday on the SEC Network, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pro's got a bit of a tight end obsession.
Well, that's between him and his doctor.
You took it exactly where I was going to take.
I knew where you were going.
You knew exactly where I was going.
We've already had this discussion off air, so I kind of knew where you were going.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. The new guy's going there, Pro. We'll be right back.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Thursday as we are getting ready for two big games, one inside the state and one where Clemson has to go on the road to what is expected to be a raucous atmosphere at Papa John's Stadium in Louisville with College Game Day and a nationally televised audience. The man who covers the Louisville Cardinals for CardinalSports.com, the Rivals.com site of the Cardinals, is Howie Lindsey. He joins us now on Sports Talk. Howie, Will Pelagic in South Carolina, how are things in Louisville?
Very good. The intensity level just keeps growing day to day as everybody gets ready for a Saturday night matchup. They've got a Friday night pep rally. They've got game day in town, game day crew in town. Of course, all these different national radio folks coming in. It's crazy too. Every single NFL team is going to be here. It's going to be a wild atmosphere Saturday night at 8:00.
What is the difference about this matchup from this year to last? Is it just Deshaun Watson's absence, or is there more on Louisville's side that's changed?
Well, it's certainly a lot on Louisville's side has changed. They lost 9 guys, 6 of whom are in NFL camps or NFL rosters now. And so, got to replace all those guys. I think Lamar Jackson is a better quarterback this year than he was last year. Certainly a better passer this year than he was last year. Louisville's got an entirely new defense with an entirely new defensive coordinator. So it's going to be real interesting in this one.
They had to replace their top 3 receivers. They still have Jalen Smith on the side there. How has he molded with this new receiving core, Lamar Jackson?
Very well. This receiving core is significantly better than the last one. They are significantly upgraded from last year, and last year wasn't bad. I mean, those 2 guys are on NFL rosters, so they're not bad receivers. But Jalen Smith is just so good. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. He's actually healthy this year. Battled injuries all of last year. They've also got this young kid, Fitzpatrick, who is fantastic. Love Des Fitzpatrick. Seth Dawkins is the third option there at wide receiver. He's huge, 6'3.5", and has the biggest hands I think I've ever seen on a wide receiver. Really reminds me of Miami Dolphin Devontae Parker, who played here a couple of years back. Big, athletic, rangy athlete, and so Louisville's got some weapons at wide receiver now.
Howie, looking at kind of the differences about Lamar Jackson, one of the things that we have noticed about him, at least in not only film study, but in listening to the coaching staff at Clemson, is that he is checking down a lot more and he is trusting the short game a lot more than he did in the past, whereas he would probably tuck it and run or possibly try to take some chances deep. How much have you noticed that?
Oh, it's a huge difference. Yeah, last year, he studied the playbook, certainly. But when push came to shove, and, honestly, Louisville's offensive line was so bad that push came to shove pretty often, he would try to check down, but honestly, you wouldn't know who to go to, and so he'd just take off running. And so that's part of the reason that he rushed for 1,500 yards last year is because his first option was run, and he did a lot of it. I mean, in addition to run, he got sacked 47 times. So in Louisville's first 2 games, he's only been sacked twice, and he's only had to really scramble for his life, 3 or 4 times. So offensive line is much improved. Plus, he's much better at understanding what his options are in throwing the football.
The voice of Howie Lindsey, CardinalSports.com on the Rivals.com network. He joins us here on Sports Talk on South Carolina Radio Network as we get ready for Clemson and Louisville this upcoming Saturday night in Louisville. One of the biggest matchups in this game, Howie, as you know, will be Clemson's defensive line, which is a huge stalwart part of their team against the Louisville offensive line. What can you tell me about Louisville's advantages or disadvantages in the trenches?
That's going to be the key for me, really, because Clemson's D-line is so good. I mean, you can see 4 or 5 of those guys going on in rosters at some point. Louisville's offensive line is much better than it was last year, I think. They brought in the offensive line coach from Florida, Mike Summers, who's worked with Bobby Petrino in the past, and I think he's really good. But how much have they improved? I mean, I tell you, I was much more confident about this game until I saw what Clemson did to Auburn with those 11 sacks. I mean, that's scary. Any offensive coordinator, any offensive line coach looks at that game and thinks, holy cow, what are we in for?
Clemson's offense looked very good against Kent State, largely absent against Auburn, but again, against the Auburn defense, it might have been curtailed a bit. Looking at what Louisville brings defensively, obviously the defensive secondary, a question mark because of Jair Alexander. Will he or won't he? What's the latest on him, and how does Louisville make up for his absence if he can't go?
Yeah, likely no Jair Alexander. It reminds me, of course, of when Louisville played Florida State last year and they didn't have James. I mean, it makes a huge difference when your best defensive player isn't out there on the field. Now, hopefully, it's not like what happened last year with Louisville, Florida State, where Louisville blew the doors off Florida State. Now, Louisville does have some experience without him, right? They played the second half against Purdue. They played an entire game against North Carolina, but the secondary wasn't all that good, and so they've got to prove something against Clemson. The trouble is, I mean, you're proving something against the defending national champion with great receivers, a really good quarterback. So it's a tough spot to put them in. The good news for Louisville on defense is they've got a great rush defense. I mean, they allowed, 20-something yards against North Carolina. They've been averaging about 30 yards in the first 2 games given up. So rush defense, I think, is very good. Pass defense has got a lot to be desired.
How would you assess the respect level given by not only the defensive staff but the defensive players of new Clemson quarterback Kelly Bryant?
Tremendous. And in fact, Bobby Petrino said yesterday that he just considers it just like Deshaun Watson, which is about as high praise as it gets because Watson is fantastic, as we can see now. I mean, he's starting for the Texans. So I think they've got a tremendous amount of respect for him. The good news for Louisville there is, if he does take off and run, they feel pretty good about it. I mean, they see that all day, every day in practice, and the best running quarterback in all of college football. So they're going to try to hem him in, make him pass. And the question is, can he do it?
Talking with Howie Lindsey, CardinalSports.com, part of the Rivals.com network. And since you cover recruiting, I do want to at least touch on the recruiting impact of having the reigning Heisman Trophy Award winner. How many more bodies does the attention that Lamar Jackson brought towards this program, how many more bodies has that brought into the program?
It is already reaping benefits. Louisville's coined the hashtag 305 to 502. 305, of course, is Miami. And Miami has been very, very good to Louisville in the past. Teddy Bridgewater, Elvis Dumerville, Charles Gaines, a whole bunch of guys who are former Louisville stars have come through Miami. Of course, Charlie Strong hit that area really, really hard. That was his prime recruiting target base. Louisville's hitting it really, really hard in this class. They've got 7 guys within that 4-county region of Miami. And so that's big. I mean, it's big. And two, I think it's big for them to have heritage there, right? With Teddy Bridgewater and then Lamar Jackson. And essentially, if you're Louisville, you feel pretty confident that you can go back into the city of Miami and get the best quarterback because of Bridgewater and Jackson.
We saw a shootout in this game last year, Howie. Obviously, the Tigers broken out to that big lead, and then, of course, Louisville getting some good fortune on turnovers. What type of game do you expect this year? Shootout, low scoring?
I was thinking like 42-35 until that Auburn game. Now I don't know what to think. I mean, I sure thought that it would be a shootout all the way, but I really don't know what to think. I think it'll still be in the 30s or 40s just because I can't imagine, even as good as Clemson's defense is, I have a hard time imagining this Louisville offense scoring less than 30 points.
Can Louisville win a game if it's not a shootout?
Good question. I don't know if Louisville's secondary is good enough to hold Clemson under 21 points.
Really?
I think the rush defense is. And so if it's in the 20s, it favors Clemson. If it's in the 30s, I think it's a toss-up. If it's in the 40s, I think it favors Louisville.
Obviously, as we turn our attention to the ACC Atlantic, does the winner of this game represent the division in the conference championship?
I think you're exactly right. I think this decides who's going to win the Atlantic. It may decide who's going to the Final Four from the ACC, because I think whoever wins the Atlantic is going to be the representative that's at least close enough. Now, what's scary is if they all beat up each other, right, and nobody gets in. We've seen that in the Big 12 in the past. So I do think whoever wins this is absolutely in the driver's seat. And Louisville feels like they're due one. I mean, it's been 3 straight years of close games, three losses, right, by a total of 15 points.
Mm-hmm.
And Louisville's got a whole lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas from last year's game.
Howie Lindsey, you can find his stuff at CardinalSports.com, part of the Rivals.com network. We're looking forward to a barn burner. Howie, thanks so much for the time, as always. I've loved having you on the various spots that I've been at, and it's great to reconnect with you.
Absolutely. Anytime.
The words of Howie Lindsey, CardinalSports.com, part of the Rivals.com network. We'll be back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network.
All right, let's give you the recruiting report tonight here on Sports Talk. Then coming up, an interview with Clemson cornerback Trayvon Mullen. Also, an interview with USC defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw. All coming up here on Sports Talk. But let's begin with recruiting. Let's begin with some basketball news, first of all. Then we'll get to some football news. And Frank Martin tonight is in the home of Zion Williamson. We have some inside information for you.
Oh.
For dinner, they had baked chicken with carrots and succotash.
That's what they roll out for Frank.
Yes. And they had coffee.
Gotcha.
And fruitcake. So anyway,
fruitcake. You put out a fruitcake for Frank Martin?
Why not? Anyway,
come on, man.
What did you call Frank Martin?
This is his in-home. This is his in-home visit with Zion Williamson, and we'll find out more after this tonight. What comes of it? Possibly my intellect, my intuition tells me that Williamson will come to South Carolina Saturday night for the football game.
Seems like
if they don't have anything else in the way, as he did with Clemson last Saturday. And then that way he won't take an official visit to either one, because I think his last official, my hunch is his last official will go to North Carolina. North Carolina coming in on Sunday for its in-home. He's got officials with Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, and UCLA. You throw North Carolina into that mix. You take unofficials to USC and Clemson, and you've done your due diligence.
It's a lot.
USC recently offered 6'10" Keosi Izagu, who attends GTA Prep in Mississauga, Ontario.
Toronto.
He also has offers from Western Michigan and Illinois, Chicago, according to his school's Twitter feed. He played last season for Hamilton Heights Christian Academy in Chattanooga. According to Max Preps, in 32 games last season, he averaged 3 points and 3.3 rebounds per game. But apparently he has improved quite a bit. The USC women will have in for an official visit on the 22nd, 6'2" Aquira DeCosta of Sacramento, number 4 prospect in the 2018 class by ESPN. And she tells us she's excited to be recruited by Dawn Staley.
Who wouldn't be?
Outstanding coach. And she said she loves the program there and thinks that Staley develops the players into something special. She has been to Southern Cal. She's going to Louisville this weekend. She will visit Tennessee and Baylor the last 2 weekends of the month. USC men now showing interest in 2019 6'10" Joel Soriano of White Plains, New York. He has offers from Stony Brook and Florida International. 6'7" Jericho Helms of St. Louis will make an official to USC this weekend. He's been to NC State. USC is out of the running for 6'9" Manny Bates of Fayetteville, North Carolina. He plans to announce tomorrow for NC State and Georgetown. Clemson basketball coach Brad Brownell scouted and offered 5'11" Anthony Nelson of South Kent, Kentucky.
Short.
He also has offers from West Virginia, Seton Hall, Cincinnati, and DePaul. And he said that Coach Brownell has told him that they need a guard that can come in and make everybody better and also create for themselves.
Yeah, 5'11", he's not a wing player.
Right.
Born.
Yeah, I said point guard.
That's what I'm saying.
I would like to get through this without interruption, please.
That's fine.
I think Clemson, he said, is a good school, and the ACC is a great conference. And he's not yet said an official to Clemson, but he plans to do so. He is going to Dayton September 22nd and Seton Hall the week after that. He averaged 15 points and 6 assists per game last season. Any comment?
You said you wanted to go without interruption.
Offensive lineman Jordan McFadden of Dorman, who has been committed to Virginia Tech since July 4th, is still committed to the Hokies. But after visiting Clemson last Saturday night for the Auburn game, the Tigers, Clemson, are making up ground and may eventually overtake Virginia Tech for the big offensive tackle. He said, between Clemson and Virginia Tech, I'm kind of stuck in the middle right now. He said, I'd say Virginia Tech is maybe leading for him right now, but he also likes Clemson a lot. Sat down with Dabo Swinney, and he said that helped close the gap a lot. He plans to visit each school again before finalizing his plans. His plan is to get back for games at Virginia Tech and also get back to Clemson as well. And he still likes Virginia Tech, and he likes their coaches. He said the decision probably will come down to how things go on his official visits. Clemson offensive line coach Robbie Caldwell recently scouted him and he's expecting his Virginia Tech recruiter to be at his game on Friday. Any thoughts?
None.
Defensive back J.C. Horn of Alpharetta, Georgia.
I'm just waiting for you to get to Trayvon Mullen, what you've been teasing for
Now
about a half
we're
an
going
hour.
to get to Javon Kinlaw next. I don't think we'll have time for Mr. Mullen. Defensive back J.C. Horn of Alpharetta, Georgia, who committed to Tennessee over USC and Alabama in August, but did not shut down his recruiting then, is going to visit USC for the Kentucky game. He was at Clemson last weekend. He says he's talking more to Muschamp now since he committed, since even before he was committed. So South Carolina still making a strong push. He says he's not wavering on Tennessee right now. He's just taking visits as he had planned. And Clemson has also stepped up its interest in him. He said he has not set his officials, but he does plan to take them all. And besides Tennessee, he's not sure which other schools will get those official visits. He did say it was real close between USC and Tennessee when he made his decision. And linebacker Dax Holyfield of Shelby, North Carolina, said last night he will make an unofficial to USC for the Kentucky game. He's also been to North Carolina for a game this season. Any thoughts on that?
Good stuff.
Any thoughts?
Good stuff.
No comments? No comments?
Be interesting because they don't have much room at the end now, so they're getting down to those precious few they want.
This is true. This is true. All right, recruiting here on Sports Talk. And, of course, you can find our recruiting on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. So Javon Kinlaw played well at Missouri.
Played well at Missouri and told a very interesting tale about his journey through junior college to get here to Columbia, and it's very, very much a sympathetic one.
It helped me a lot in that quick year, you know what I'm saying, down there with my defensive line coach, Coach Maddox, Anthony Maddox. He played in the NFL for about 6 years, so everything I felt like I could listen to him more because he know what it takes to get to that next level. So I just felt like me going there was the best thing I had out of high school, you know what I'm saying. I just went with it, you know what I mean. Coach Muschamp came up with the plan. He came to my high school, told me the plan. I didn't have nothing else going on. I mean, at the time, me and my dad, we was going through some things, you know what I'm saying. Finna be probably homeless that week, so that was the best plan for me to just go ahead and go there. I mean, I didn't know anything about junior college really until Coach Muschamp told me the plan and things like that. And I went down there the first week. It was rough, but I mean, I just told myself, I mean, where else would you be right now? So I just stuck with it.
Was there a moment in these first 2 weeks where you've been like, you arrived, you know, I'm here, I'm in a Division I school like this?
Well, most definitely, because when I first came, you know, I was 340. Today I weigh 309. So I mean, everything the staff and everybody has in place for me, you know, like conditioning wise. So it's really helped. And these past couple of weeks, I've been feeling my endurance and things going up and stuff like that. Rather than when camp first started, I was out there blowed. Well, now I can go a lot more.
Take us through that field goal block on Saturday.
Well, coach just told me, because they was kind of submarining, like going down. Really wasn't like up, putting their chest up. They was just going down. He just told me, put my hands on the shoulder pads and just look for the ball. I'd look for the ball. I put my hand where I thought it was going to be at, and I got a piece of it, you know.
How much of a pride point is it for this defense, these first two games, going up against two very good offenses and coming out with the results you have?
Well, I think it means a lot to our older guys for us to get these wins, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. And we, like they said, we haven't beat Kentucky in 3 years. So I just want to be a part of getting them a win, you know.
That's the voice of Javon Kinlaw, and that's a guy you really want to root for, in my mind, you know, because it's a true rags to riches type story. And I tell you what, he's a guy who can be and has been an immediate contributor on this defensive line, and it's a unit that is largely improved much because of the contributions he's made.
His story is a good one, of course, having followed him in high school. Chuck Reedy was his high school coach at Goose Creek. He had moved down to the Charleston area from up in D.C., and he was a much talked about player in high school and was heavily recruited and committed to the Gamecocks, and things weren't working out academically. They realized it early enough and got him into a situation where he could get to junior college, get him through it quickly, and then get him on to USC so he can get the maximum out of his time in the Division I level.
Rooting for him.
Be right back.
Good kid. don't think he knew where the ramp was on that one, Corn.
The what?
I don't think he knew where the ramp was.
The ramp.
Where it gets.
That's DJ talk, isn't it?
DJ talk.
Or music talk. Hey, it's time to give you our high school football report for tonight here on Sports Talk. Then we're going to hear from the Tigers' Trayvon Mullen, and our high school report is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. And with new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you could be saving a whole lot of money. Even if you've even if you've received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever. So get a no obligation quote today at favrates.com. And tonight we've got the players of the week for you, selected by the high school sports report. The 5A player of the week is Hunter Illing of Sockasty, quarterback, 319 yards, 5 touchdowns in that big win over Myrtle Beach. 4A player of the week is DeJuan Bell of North Augusta, two-way performer. He caught 3 touchdown passes, had 94 yards receiving, and intercepted 2 passes in a win over Lexington. 3A player of the week is John Irby of Chester. He passed for 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, had 60 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns in a win. AA player of the week is Savion Watson of Chesterfield, 5 touchdown passes and a rushing touchdown in a victory at Steve Tannehill's old school. Class A player of the week, Micah Bryant of Hemingway, key defensive force. He had 25 tackles, and he returned a fumble, 47 yards for a touchdown in a win over Andrews. Skeeza player of the week, Lance Brownlee of Dorchester Academy. He passed for 299 yards and 5 touchdowns, had a 6th touchdown on the ground as Dorchester remained undefeated. There you go with the high school report for tonight. Now, earlier this week up at Clemson, had a chance to catch up with Trayvon Mullen, who is coming along in a big, big way for the Tigers at cornerback. And we had a chance to talk about the big game coming up this weekend at Louisville.
What do you think is going to be the biggest difference from what you guys faced last week to what you're facing this week in Louisville and in Lamar Jackson?
As far as last week to this week, I feel it's a lot more we have to do this week as far as containing and playing with your eyes, using your keys, and just being a disciplined team and just knowing what you have to do to put you in the best position to make plays and just stay focused and listen to details that Coach Venables tell you, and just so he can help you put it in the right position. I just feel like they got a lot of great players, and if we play how we supposed to play, then I think everything will be fine.
Did you guys kind of feel that Stidham would be more of a stationary target, and you kind of knew where he would be?
I feel so. I think so. I believe so. As far as watching film and things like that, we kind of knew what we was going to get. We was prepared and ready, and I feel like we showed that Saturday. I feel like we showed it. 11 sacks. I feel like we do show it.
Who gets the credit for the sacks? The guys up front or the guys on the back end who kept those receivers covered up so he didn't have a lot of places to throw the football?
I feel like we all get them. We all working. We all get them. We covering. They getting the sacks. They getting the sacks. We covering. It just all work hand in hand. We all applauding each other. It just all works together. It's all connected.
We hear about Coach Venables and his attention to detail. Give me some examples about how detailed he is about his details.
Coach V, he's a really detailed guy. He wants you to be in the best position to make plays and to be the best player you can be as far as explaining. You can ask him questions, and he's ready to give you an answer and the correct answer, and it shows on the field. As far as when you're using techniques and things like that he tell you to do, when you do it, you will see how it changed you and help you as a player.
All right, Lamar Jackson, an entirely different animal. I mean, as good as you guys were on defense last year, he still had almost 460 yards of offense against you. He's got 505 yards per game total offense this season. He would rank 26th as a team nationally just by himself. Those numbers impress you?
Yeah, it does. It does a lot. I feel like it really do impress me. It shows that he's a good player. They're a good team as well. And I feel like we have to come in and play. We have to do what we have to do, prepare with a purpose, just stay focused, be humble, and just go out there and like I said, play as a team and be a whole, and we all work together. And I feel like we'll be in shape.
How difficult is it in your position with a quarterback like him to stay with your receiver, knowing that at some point you may have to peel off to come up and try and make a play on him?
It's important for us to do our job. So if we play in a call where we have a man, we have to stay on our man, because there's always somebody who has that job to get the quarterback. It's always somebody for that. So when you have a job, you have to do your job first. And then when it gets to a certain point where you can, then you can add on. So as far as man calls, and stay with your guy, be disciplined, know your keys, know your rules and things like that. So as long as you know what you have to do, you'll be in shape.
Did you get many snaps against him in last year's game?
No, I haven't. But this year I'm prepared and ready.
Do y'all communicate at all this week?
We talk every day. Besides even football, we just talk every day. That's my first cousin. We always talk. Just joke about all type of things. We just always talk. We never really talk about football. We just talk. That's just the bond we always had. We always been close.
And so what's your message to him this week, or your last message to him maybe yesterday?
What was the last message? It wasn't about football, though. I'm pretty sure it wasn't about football. I don't think so. I think it was a funny picture or something we was laughing at or something like that.
But it will be all serious and all business when you guys get together on Saturday, right?
Yeah, it would be all business Saturday. Like we still love each other. We both know what the goal is for him, and he know I have my own goals, so we're gonna get after each other.
Of course, he's talking about his cousin, Lamar Jackson. So it'll be a lot of fun watching those two go after one another in terms of I doubt Mullen will get a chance to blitz or anything like that. They don't do a whole lot of that with Clemson's corners, but there may be a chance for him to get a good lick in when Jackson comes across that line of scrimmage looking for a place to run.
This is the very key part of the Clemson D that I think we're all wanting to see more of, or at least see the most out of. It's the most key part of winning this game against Louisville. If the back four has a representative day, this should be an easy Clemson victory. But if they don't, and Lamar Jackson's able to take advantage, not only short but also long, it could be a long day the other way.
I think that Clemson's defense is going to survive, and I think Clemson's offense. The big difference here is Louisville's defense is Swiss cheese.
Yes,
and especially with Jair Alexander out, that weakens them considerably. So I think Clemson's going to have a good day running the football. I imagine
they'll need it because we haven't seen it yet.
Well, I think they're probably going to come out and really emphasize running the football with Bryant and with those running backs. And, of course, as you like to say, Pro, what that does is keeps Lamar Jackson on the sideline.
Well, here's the thing about Louisville. It's interesting. They can do the quick strike.
Right.
But if you're Louisville, you want to stay in the football game and make sure offensively you're making play after play after play, because as good as that Clemson defensive line is, they're a little bit devoid of frontline depth. So if you can make them play 90, 95 plays, those guys could tire out at the end. I know they're very athletic and very good, but, you know, as what Nolan Richards used to say, fatigue makes cowards of us all.
He didn't create that. I mean, he just took that from somebody else. Right?
No, I think he was the first one who said it.
I don't think he did that. That probably came from the wartime somewhere. I think who was that great general? Patton. I think probably Patton said that. Real quick, at Clemson, Van Smith going to play. But questionable is gosh, Corn, where is your brain tonight? Questionable is Marcus Edmond.
Right.
Stephen Montag, according to Muschamp.
Game time decision.
Yeah, still dealing with his injury.
No Taven Jackson.
Taven Jackson is out. Kentucky's linebacker, Jones, is out.
That's a big out there.
Travel safe to Louisville.
Off to Louisville to run with the horses this weekend.
Just don't step in it.
But I'll see you tomorrow night with the rest of the guys. Thank you, Stockton, and have a great night, everybody.